A few years ago, I was just about to embark on a very exciting journey. I had recently received a scholarship to study in Morocco, to do research and study in Morocco for a year, and serve as a cultural ambassador to bring my American culture to Morocco and then to bring Moroccan culture back to the US. And my defining moment happened over the course of 1 week, just before my departure and just after my arrival in Morocco. I just graduated from university. I'd studied the Middle East and North Africa a lot about Islam as well, and also really followed current events in the United States and realized that going to the Middle East might not be something that a lot of Americans would be supportive of or would understand why I would want to do something like this. And just a few days before going, I was speaking to many friends and relatives and people that I knew and people that I didn't know either, telling them that I was going to Morocco. One man said, well, you know, have a great time at the casinos. I wish you luck. I said, no, not Monaco. It's Morocco, different country. But I heard a lot of really troubling things. People, you know, making comments that were very ignorant, just a lack of understanding about the culture, about the politics, about the religion, and they really bothered me. When I went to Morocco, the first few days I was there, the same exact thing happened, but on the other, reversed. I would walk down the street, and the minute someone found out I was American, they'd have many questions, very pointed, sometimes bitter questions about what it is like to be an American, questions about our foreign policy, questions about our president. And it was that week I drew a conclusion. The conclusion was that Americans and people from the Middle East, and particularly Morocco, know very little about the other culture. They read newspapers, they watch TV shows, they watch movies, and they're caricatures. Both sides produce caricatures of the other, inciting fear in the other. And what the kind of upside of the story was that after this week of really difficult questions, I had the chance to speak to these people again during my time in Morocco, and then once I returned to the United States and was able to share some of the experiences that I had and really reframe a lot of the misconceptions that they had about both sides. And once they saw a much more human vision of both sides, their fears were really assuaged and their curiosity was really piqued in learning more. So I think this moment, this week, really has defined what I do now with OneVoice in creating greater awareness on both sides and reframing existing prejudices that do exist.
How did you get involved with OneVoice?
Following my year in Morocco, I returned to the United States, and I'd had some really interesting experiences in the Middle East, traveling to Jordan and Palestine, Israel and Egypt, and speaking to young people there, people my age. And so frequently what they would speak about was the conflict, conflict in their own societies, but also conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. And for a place like Morocco, this was sometimes hard for me to understand at first because geographically these two regions are so separated by thousands of miles, and Morocco doesn't suffer from a lot of the negative repercussions of the conflict like some of the other, like Israel and Palestine, and like some other neighboring countries of that region. But it just became very clear to me that this is something that matters to so many people. And even coming back to the United States and speaking with people here, the conflict is something that everyone is thinking about, whether we have ethnic ties to the conflict or not. So I came back and I knew I wanted to do something with this conflict, and I was introduced to OneVoice by a former colleague of mine who said, this is a great movement, you should really look into it further. I really liked the model that they work with. I think it's a very realistic, pragmatic model of two parallel movements who come to the organization for very different reasons, but are ultimately working towards the same goal of ending the conflict. So after I returned from Morocco, I began working for OneVoice and with North America University Outreach.
Tell us more about the scope of OneVoice. How large is the movement, and what kind of support are you receiving?
OneVoice is a very broad-based grassroots movement that exists in Israel and Palestine and increasingly around the world. We started in 2002, which was the height of the Second Intifada. The Intifada was a period of uprising and violence on both sides. We were founded in this period of hopelessness as an alternative, as a way to have each of us ask ourselves what we are willing to do and take very personal responsibility in working to reframe the existing reality, which was not a very pretty one. OneVoice counts about 650,000 signatories to our mandate, many of whom are very much involved with the OneVoice movement as youth leaders, as community members who are continuing to do this very important work of preparing communities on both sides to put pressure on their leadership and to prepare for an end to conflict. We have about 3,100 youth leaders that have been trained on both sides, and we are growing every day. OneVoice is happy to receive support from people from all over, from all aspects of society. We are a broad-based grassroots movement, and we are trying to build a very representative constituency to reach out to all stakeholders. So we have reached out to young people and old people. We have many religious people from all religious faiths, from the three major religious faiths that exist in Israel and Palestine. We also work with political leaders. We have support from King Abdullah of Jordan. We have support from many different American political figures like Dennis Ross, Ambassador Ross. In Palestine, we work with people such as Mahmoud Abbas, the president, as Saeb Erekat, the chief Palestinian negotiator. On the Israeli side, we work with many, many different members of Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament, Ephraim Snei, among many others.